The Last Battle is a high fantasy novel for children by C.S.Lewis, published by the Bodley Head in 1956. It was the seventh and final novel in the Chronicles of Narnia. Like the others, it was illustrated by Pauline Baynes, and her work has been retained in many later editions. The Last Battle is set almost entirely in the Narnia world, and the English children who participate arrive only in the middle of the narrative. The novel is set some 200 Narnian years after the Silver Chair and about 2,500 years since the creation of the world, narrated in The Magician's Nephew. A false Aslan is set up in the northwestern borderlands, and conflict between true and false Narnians merges with that between Narnia and Calormen, whose people worship Tash. It concludes with termination of the world by Aslan after a last battle that is practically lost. Macmillan US published an American edition within the calendar year. Lewis and The Last Battle won the annual Carnegie Medal from the Library Association, recognizing the year's best children's book by a British subject. The author wrote to illustrator Baynes, "Is it not rather our medal? I'm sure the illustrations were taken into account as well as the text." Plot: Narnia has had peace and prosperity since the reign of King Caspian X, but Runwit the Centaur warns Tirian, the latest king of Narnia, that strange and evil things are happening to Narnia and that the stars portend ominous developments. In the north of Narnia, an ape named Shift had persuaded a well-meaning but simple-minded donkey called Puzzle to dress in a lion skin and pretend to be the great lion, Aslan. Using Puzzle as his pawn, Shift convinces the Narnians that he speaks for Aslan and deceives a majority of them into serving the Calormens and to cut down talking trees for lumber. The money will be paid into Aslan's treasury, held by Shift, on the pretext that it will be used for the good of the Narnians. Tirian and his friend Jewel the Unicorn hear word of Aslan's return, but recognize the farce that Shift has fabricated in league with the talking cat Ginger and the Calormen warlord Rishda Tarkhan. The lie that Aslan and the Calormen god Tash are one and the same. When he accuses the ape of lying, Tirian is tied to a tree far from the stable where Puzzle is being held. Tirian calls on Aslan for help and receives a vision of Diggory Kirk, Polly Plummer, Peter Pevensey, Edmund Pevensey, Eustace Scrubb, Lucy Pevensey, and Jill Pole, though he does not know who they are. The people in the vision also see Tirian, and though Tirian can't speak to them, they guess he is a messenger from Narnia. A few minutes later by Narnian time, but a week later from the perspective, Jill and Eustace arrive in Narnia. They release the king and rescue Jewel and Puzzle. A band of dwarfs are also rescued, but because the faith in Aslan has been shattered, they refuse to help, claiming the dwarfs for the dwarfs. Only one dwarf, Poggin, is faithful to Tirian, Aslan, and Narnia itself. Tirian learns that Shift and Rishda have unintentionally summoned the actual Tash to Narnia, and that Runwit and the Narnian army have all been killed in battle. Tirian and his small force advance on the stable to expose the truth of Shift's deception. However, after covering his tracks by demonizing Puzzle, Shift and Rishda weed out the troublemakers among the surviving Narnians by having them venture into the stable to meet Tashlin. But Ginger, sent in to aid in the deception, runs out in terror, having lost his ability to speak. Emeth, one of Rishda's men and a devout follower of Tash, insists on seeing his god. Rishda tries to dissuade him, but Emeth enters the stable, and the dead body of another soldier, who was stationed in the stable to murder the rebellious Narnians, is thrown out instead. Tirian's group engages Shift and the Calormens, but most of the remaining Narnians are slaughtered. Tirian throws Shift into the stable, and Tash, revealed to have been haunting the stable since Ginger briefly entered it, swallows the ape whole. This event frightens Richter, who offers Eustace, Jill, Poggin, and the dwarves as sacrifices to Tash to avoid his god's wrath. But Tyrion, left alone and fighting for his life, drags Richter into the stable and finds himself in a vast and beautiful land. Peter, Edmund, Eustace, Lucy, Jill, Polly, and Diggory appear. Peter orders Tash to return to his realm, and Tash vanishes with Richter in his clutches. The kings and queens bear witness to the end of the Narnian world. All the inhabitants, including those who have died, gather outside the barn to be judged by Aslan. The faithful enter Aslan's country, while those who have opposed or deserted him become ordinary animals and vanish. The vegetation is eaten by dragons and giant lizards before Father Time calls the stars down from the skies into the sea as it rises to cover Narnia. The land freezes when Father Time puts out the sun and the moon. Peter closes the door, and Aslan leads them to his country, telling them to go further into the one true Narnia. They move up a waterfall to gates where they are greeted by Reepi Cheap and meet other characters from the earlier novels. They find they can see a real England. Aslan tells them that the English friends of Narnia and the Pevensies' parents have all died in a train crash. The series ends with the revelation that it was only the beginning of the true story, which goes on forever, and in which every chapter is better than the one before. Characters: Tyrion, the last king of Narnia, who leads the fight of Narnia against the Calormenes. Jewel, unicorn, retainer to King Tyrion, also his best friend. Eustace Clarence Scrub, a friend of Narnia, who fights for the Narnians. Jilpole, friend of Eustace. Shift, an ape who allies with Calormen and creates the Tashlan hoax. Puzzle, a donkey who is tricked by Shift. Ginger, a cat, in league with Shift. Richter Tarkhan, Calormen captain leading the battle against Narnia, swallowed by Tash during the destruction of Narnia. Emeth, a righteous soldier of Calormen, who discovers his true devotion to Aslan. Tash, and evil god of Calormen, who haunts the stable, opposes Aslan, and swallows Richter and Shift. Aslan, the god of Narnia, son of the emperor over the sea, who takes form of a lion. Peter Pevensie, the oldest of the Pevensies, High King Peter, the Magnificent of Narnia. Lucy Pevensie, sister of Peter, Queen Lucy, the Valiant of Narnia. Edmund Pevensie, brother of Lucy and Peter, King Edmund, the Just of Narnia. Diggory Kirk, first friend of Narnia, who witnessed its creation, Lord Diggory in Narnia. Polly Plummer, friend of Diggory, Lady Polly in Narnia. Reception. Floyd C. Gale wrote in Galaxy Science Fiction that the book is a delightful fantastic fable of the type which the English have excelled since, or perhaps because of, Lewis Carroll.